Good evening, I'm Bilgute Tumendimbril with Today. We broadcast news and stories every Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday in English. On this edition we have a very special guest. Let me introduce Director and UNESCO representative to the People's Republic of China, Japan, Mongolia and the Republic of Korea, Mrs. Marielza Oliveira. Good evening.
Hello.
Thank you for receiving our invitation.
Thank you, Bilgute. Thank you very much for giving me the chance to be here today. It's a big pleasure.
Thank you. So let's start talking about the highlights and key issues in Mongolia according to the Global Education Monitoring Report in 2016.
Okay. The issues that appear for Mongolia are very similar, the same issues actually that appear for most countries in the world.
In the world, not
in
only
Asia-Pacific,
in Asia.
Not in just the 5 countries I cover, but in the world.
Right.
Most countries, they see, the following challenges. One is a mismatch between what is being taught in school and what you need to know nowadays, what you really need to learn in order to live a full, productive, self-fulfilling life. So there are different skills that you need in today's world that they were not necessarily as important as before. One example for that, since you are from media, media literacy.
Literacy, right.
Media literacy, as a matter of fact. The capacity to critically distinguish between what, for example, you find on the internet as being evidence-based, as being actual, true, real facts, or what you call fake, facts,
fake facts
that are, proliferating. So, this is one of these skills that in the past weren't not so important because you didn't have access to that much information.
Right.
It didn't come at you so much. So one of these issues is the issue of
mismatch.
The second issue is the issue of inequality. Inequality in education systems. In the fact that, for example, the education that you receive, have available to you in rural areas may not necessarily have the same level of quality that you see in urban areas.
Yes, different qualities.
Different qualities. Right. And it's simply because a lot of migration from the rural areas into the urban settings. So cities are growing, and which means that there are, and the young people are the ones who migrate the most. So, by leaving their rural areas, you're actually taking away, for example, good motivated teachers that could be there. To help the new, generations, to teach them, to help them learn.
Yes.
They concentrate on cities.
Cities, yes.
On cities, for example.
That's so much happening in Mongolia.
That's one of the examples. The inequality in terms of rural and urban disparities. Inequality in terms of education not necessarily being provided with the same level in different languages that ethnic groups have, minority groups. If you are offered an education in only the major, culture or language of the country, then perhaps you exclude some people, from access to that kind of education. For example, persons with disabilities. Recently Mongolia, has passed, a law enshrining the rights of persons with disabilities, which means that, provision of education, public services to persons with disabilities with the same quality, with the same level that others that don't necessarily perhaps need as much support, is something that needs to be done. So you have disparities in the access of to education and of the quality of education offered between different groups of people, different geographical areas and so on. And you also have the issues of mismatch in terms of the skills and competencies that you need to learn for life and the ones that the school system is offering you, nowadays. For example, critical thinking, in all areas.
Yes.
The ability to deal with change.
Because especially nowadays, change is happening so rapidly in the society.
Everywhere, So you need to actually be able to deal constructively with change. Most people get anxious So those are things that are, school systems need to improve
work
in order
on,
to
right.
really, be able to address the issues that we have nowadays rather than keep offering the same content.
Next question is, UNESCO and Government of Mongolia have signed a comprehensive cooperation agreement aligned with Agenda 2030 for SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, in February 2017, right?
Right.
So what does Memorandum of Understanding cover? It's a little official, but we have to mention it.
Absolutely. Well, the Memorandum of Understanding is essentially the list of topics that we are going to be supporting Mongolia at the request of Mongolia, for a period of years. So this is for 2017 until 2021. 21st.
It's 4 years, probably.
For roughly 5 years that it covers. And it covers the different types of support that UNESCO will offer and collaborate with Mongolia to make happen. And UNESCO works in essentially 5 different areas. We work in education, of course. So most of the support in the Memorandum of Understanding is about supporting Mongolia in transforming its education systems in order to achieve the goals of Education 2030 agenda. And there are very specific areas, for example, in technical and vocational training, because that's a really important area for example, for youth employment.
Youth employment,
exactly.
Right.
So in higher education or tertiary education, university education, because there's a big need for upgrading and internationalizing the high-level education of Mongolia, so that the students
that there can be transfers,
graduate and with the top standards from the world, applying standards that are global in nature, so
acceptable
that Mongolia knows where it stands. This kind of thing. So in education area. In culture, this is a second area that we work a lot with in Mongolia. Mongolia has a magnificent culture, and I love the nomadic culture, and it's beautiful. And, incredible heritage sites and natural landscapes that are amazing, so supporting, building awareness about them, improving how cultural assets that Mongolia has can be placed at the service of development, social development, economic development, and so on. It's a big area. For example, nomadic culture is a great asset for, cultural tourism. That generates jobs, then it generates good opportunities for people to make a good income and so on. But
and
also,
it's very healthy.
Exactly. And, nomadic lifestyle, which is another aspect of the culture, is incredibly eco-friendly. So there's a lot to learn, from the cultural traditions of Mongolia in this area that serve the needs of a world that needs, ecological conscience, applied. So that's another area that we're going to be working with Mongolia. A third area that we work a lot is natural sciences, and this is the scientific support that we work. So natural sciences for us has a lot to do with 2 key areas that are important for Mongolia. The first is environmental protection and environmental greening economies and so on, greening societies in general. And the other one is about science, technology, and innovation. No country can grow without, technology, scientific advancement that generates technologies that can be applied and, to new products, new ideas, and so on, new services. And innovation is key, for this area. So helping, Mongolia measure, define how it looks at innovation and measure how it's progressing towards more innovation, a more innovative and knowledge society is super important.
And I think, in my opinion, it's very important. Okay, there are so many innovations in Mongolia, scientifically, but promoting it and making it happen or making it go to the industry,
Yes.
doing something out of it, making something out of it is very essential, I think.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And connecting Mongolian researchers and scientists with networks all over the world as well, so that they can also disseminate and showcase the good advances that Mongolia has been making, partner with others, because you know, scientific research is costly, and you know, so engaging in scientific networks reduces costs and increases the speed at which you can innovate, and so on. So those are, you know, the kinds of things we're doing in the science. And finally, we have an area in communications and information. A key area of innovation, for example, and of belonging to this society is having access to information. And media development is one area, making sure that the various aspects of media, radio, you know, community radio, major TVs and newspapers and websites and everything, they follow good standards and in media, and measure, you know, how well they disseminate information, you know, and allow, you know, facilitate access to information for people is a key area. We're doing some work on that. And as well as on ICT technologies, you know, for assistive technologies that can help, for example, persons with disabilities gain access to information, or advanced technologies that can, you know, support innovation and research and things like that. So this is, those are the areas we work with.
Since we mentioned promoting these ideas, how does UNESCO promote SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, and what kind of activities are implemented in Mongolia according to SDG?
Oh, well, you know, for us, there are so many important areas. Of course, UNESCO leads, is the leading agency globally for SDG 4, which means quality, lifelong learning for all. So this is a key area. The education area is a key sustainable development goal for us, in which we work quite a lot in Mongolia, exactly, you know, with this kind of, the kind of thing that I've been doing here right now. I came to help on 3 key areas. My staff, actually, my office is here this week for this. The first is for us to look at how do we measure progress in quality learning for all. You know, what are the indicators in Sustainable Development Goal 4 that allow Mongolia to understand and measure, you know, how much it's going forward in the key areas of transforming education systems. The second one is the launch of the report that you mentioned, the Global Education Monitoring Report, which actually shows what kinds of goal, you know, of opportunities and gaps exist. You know,
what's
so
the
that you
status
say
right now?
Exactly. What is it that needs to be done? What has been done already? What needs to be done, you know, in order for more progress to happen?
We need to know where we are first, right?
Exactly. And then the fourth, you know, third thing is for the national consultation. We got together a group of, you know, high-level educators. You know, you have the Ministry of Education, you have NGOs, and you have, you know, civil society, academia, even private sector sitting together to think, okay, so if those are the gaps that exist and those are the opportunities, what can we do in order to really move forward fast, you know, at low cost in order to attain these goals? So this is, you know, that how we support the SDGs in this area. But we also work in many other areas, you know, there's so much that can be done. You know.
So tell us about the national level consultation of localization of the SDG 4. What does it mean to localize education 2030?
This is an incredibly smart question. Thank you. The localization means that you take goals and targets that have been developed globally and say, how do they apply in Mongolia? And how do they apply to the different groups of people in Mongolia? One of the concepts of the Sustainable Development Goals agenda is that you're supposed to leave no one behind, which means that everyone, no matter where, or who, they need to feel the benefits and you know and achieve the end goals of the agenda. You know, so far as localization has two components.
Right.
First, in establishing what is the baseline, where does Mongolia start from, and where does it need to go over the 15-year period, and so that we know what is the size of the challenge that is ahead, you know, and can then, you know, plan to what needs to be done every year and so forth. And the second thing about localization is to say, how do we disaggregate information? Because one thing is to say, on average, in the country, you know, you have X number of years of schooling and so on, but averages hide inequalities. So we take the information that exists and make sure that we calculate these, you know, targets. Or look at this information from the perspective of a person with disability, from the perspective of a rural area. So what is the gap for them? You know, so localization has those two aspects. The aspect of making sure that what is global is adapted
on the ground,
on the ground to the needs of Mongolia, to the opportunities that Mongolia has, to the gaps that exist in Mongolia. So that's one thing. And then within Mongolia, which groups do we need to emphasize support to, so that by the end of the period, they are not left behind. So you need to find who is further behind, so that you know, because everybody needs to arrive at the same level. But if some people start from here and some from here, you need, you know, the plan to make this, you know, to close these gaps must be different. That's the spirit of localization.
Very nice. Very interesting. So in the end, I want to ask, so who is really responsible to make all these great goals closer to people's everyday life, make it grounded, translate it from paperwork to real action, real progress? Who is responsible?
Well, I'll tell you that it's you and me and everybody, you know, that is responsible for that. Because, you know, this is a global agreement that was reached in the United Nations, and that is, you know, a commitment made by the government of Mongolia in the name of Mongolia. You know, so we all have a part to play, each one of us, at the individual level, at the familial, you know, community, at the country level, and so on. So, for example, if you're talking about education, well, big part of what you learn in life is done in a family setting. You know, another big part is about on-the-job training. Another part is at school. You know, so how do we make those things come together in a way that each of us contributes what needs to, you know, to a part that needs to be to happen? How do we help, you know, a city to be a learning environment and offer that opportunity for students? More libraries, better, you know, after-school programs, and how do we make schools more, you know, effective and training, you know, how do employers help, you know, their workforce, and so on.
So in a way, we all have to, every single person have to play own role to make it happen, right?
Absolutely, you know, so.
Well, unfortunately, we have limited time. There's so much to talk about, but limited time. Thank you for your very interesting takes on education, SDG.
No, thank you so much for inviting, and, you know, it was really a big honor. So.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, that's all for today. Thank you for being with us. You're watching Today. See you on next Tuesday with more news. You have a good one. Bye-bye.